Hey everyone, and welcome. So, have you ever found yourself just mindlessly scrolling through your social media feed, looking at everyone's seemingly perfect lives, and you just get this feeling, is any of this actually real? Today, I want to explain exactly what's going on there. We're going to pull back the curtain on our digital identities and really take a look at this incredible, and let's be honest, sometimes completely exhausting performance that we all seem to be a part of online.
So let's just dive right in with a question that a user on Reddit posted. And honestly, it's a question I think a lot of us have probably asked ourselves at some point. It just gets right to the heart of what it feels like to be on social media today. Are we looking at something genuine, or are we just watching a really, really well rehearsed play?
This feeling is so common that it actually has a name. It's called the highlight reel effect, and it's the perfect way to describe it. It's like we've all become the directors of our own personal movie, right? But the catch is, we only ever show the audience the very best scenes, the happy ending. We see the stunning vacations, the exciting new job announcements, the perfect smiling family photos. But what about the outtakes, the arguments, the really bad days, the boring Tuesday afternoon where nothing happens? Yeah, those almost never make it into the final cut. And that's the problem. When you're constantly comparing your own behind-the-scenes footage with everyone else's polished highlight reel, it's so easy to feel like you're the one who's falling behind.
Okay, so that leads us to the really big question here. Why? Why do we all do this? What is this deep-seated human need that drives us to so meticulously curate our lives for an online audience? Let's get into it.
The person who originally asked that question on Reddit, they just put it perfectly, and they really hit on a serious point. This constant exposure to what looks like perfect lives is having a real, measurable, and pretty negative impact on our collective mental health. I mean, think about it. When you're surrounded day in and day out by what looks like everyone else's success story, it can be incredibly isolating. It can make you feel like you're the only one who's just, struggling to get through the day. And what's so fascinating when you look at the responses is that the reasons are all over the map. It's not just about showing off. For some people, it's about social conformity, just trying to fit in with the crowd because standing out feels scary. For others, it's almost an act of hope, that whole fake it till you make it mindset, where you're trying to perform your way into actually feeling better. And then you have this other angle, people who put on a brave face because they don't want to burden their friends or family with their problems. It's this really complex web of motivations. Now, it's easy to think that this whole idea of performing our lives is a new thing, that it's just a byproduct of the internet. But to really understand what's happening, we can look at a sociological framework that was actually developed long, long before the first selfie was ever taken. Decades before social media was even a thought, a sociologist named Irving Goffman had this absolutely brilliant insight. He basically said that all of social life is a kind of theatrical performance. We are all actors on a stage. Every single day, we choose our costumes, we rehearse our lines, and we manage our actions to present a certain version of ourselves to the world. Social media didn't invent this behavior, it just gave us a global stage with a 24/7 audience. And here's the crucial part of his theory. Goffman wasn't saying this is all about being fake or dishonest. A lot of the time, this performance is driven by a very real, very human desire to simply connect, to be heard, and to be understood. We're looking for someone to say, I see you, I get it. The only difference now is that with social media, we're not just performing for the few people in the room with us. We're performing for a potential audience of millions. So if we're all actors on this massive digital stage, what are the actual strategies we're using? What does the script look like here in the 21st century? Let's break down a few of the most calming techniques. One of the most common things we do is what sociologists call dividing the self. And this makes a lot of sense if you think about it. You're not the exact same person with your boss as you are with your best friend or your grandma, right? We all have different sides to us. Online, we manage this by creating separate stages for each of those personas. You might have your polished professional self on LinkedIn, and then your fun, casual, maybe even a little goofy self on a private Instagram account that's just for your close friends. And this isn't always easy. In a study on this very topic, a librarian and blogger named Saba talked about how deeply she struggled with this exact thing. Where does the professional self end and the personal self begin when you're online? For many people, it's a constant and often pretty stressful balancing act. And this is a brilliant example of just how deep this performance really goes. It's not just in the big things, like the photos we decide to post. It's in the smallest, most subtle details. In that same study, Another blogger said she chose the username Velvet Paws specifically because she felt it sounded more feminine. I mean, think about that for a second. Even our usernames become part of the costume we choose to wear for our online audience.
But the performance isn't always about presenting happiness and perfection. Sometimes it flips to the complete opposite extreme. There's a strategy that's been dubbed sad fishing, and this is where someone shares their emotional or personal problems, often in a kind of vague or exaggerated way, specifically to get a rush of sympathy and attention. It's a pretty controversial tactic, and some people describe it as a form of emotional clickbait.
So let's look at a really clear example of this in action. This TikTok creator posted a video that revealed the deep emotional struggle that was hiding behind her typically happy and energetic online persona. And the result? The video just blew up. It went viral, getting over 2 million views and this massive wave of empathetic comments. It's a really powerful demonstration of how performing vulnerability, whether it's totally genuine or a bit more strategic, can drive incredible levels of engagement.
But here's the thing. Whether we're performing happiness or we're performing sadness, this constant need to manage our public image, it takes a toll. It's a direct path into what psychologists call the validation trap, and it can have a really serious impact on our mental well-being.
The way most social media platforms are designed is that they run on a currency of external validation. We're talking about likes, comments, shares, followers. The trap is when we start treating our own sense of self-worth like it's a stock that goes up and down based on these numbers. We slowly start to trade our inner sense of who we are, our authenticity, our personal growth, for this empty currency of digital approval. And over time, that can leave our self-esteem completely dependent on the whims of our online audience. Let's take the story of Jane, a student who, by all outside measures, was incredibly successful. She had amazing grades, tons of accomplishments, but she became obsessed with comparing her life to the perfectly curated, idealized lives she saw on social media. And soon enough, her own real-world achievements started to feel meaningless to her because they just didn't look as glamorous as the online ideals she was constantly chasing. Or you could consider the case of Mark, a fitness influencer who started his channel out of a genuine love for health and wellness. But as his audience got bigger, so did the pressure to perform. He started tailoring his workouts and his advice not for what was most effective, but for what he thought would get the most likes. His passion slowly became a job, and his online persona became a kind of prison, trapping him in a cycle of creating content he didn't even really believe in anymore. Now, these stories are way too common, and they raise a really critical question for all of us. How do we break free from this cycle? How do we find a way to be online that feels more authentic, healthier, and, well, more real? Well, psychologists who study this stuff actually offer a few very concrete steps we can all take. First, try a digital detox. This is all about intentionally taking a break, even if it's just for a day or a weekend, to reset your brain and remember what life feels like without that constant input. Second, become a ruthless curator of your own feed. If an account consistently makes you feel bad about yourself, just unfollow it. Actively seek out and follow people who feel genuine and whose values actually align with yours. And third, build your media literacy. Learn to spot the subtle signs of photo editing and filters, because the more you can see the performance for what it is, the less power it has over you. Ultimately, the goal of all of this is to build a bridge over that gap you see here. The gap between your real self, which is who you are with all your complexities and your imperfections, and that polished ideal self you feel so much pressure to project online. It's about building a sense of self-worth that is solid and internal, not something that can be swayed by the number of likes on your latest post. And that really brings us to the final crucial thought I want to leave you with. The performance of self has always been a part of being human. But today, the stage is global, the lights are always on, and the audience? Well, the audience never leaves. So the question we all have to answer for ourselves is this. In a world that is completely saturated with highlight reels, how will you choose to define what's real? Thanks for your time watching this whole explanation. I'd love to hear your opinions on this, so comment down below. Share your own experiences. I'm sure we can all relate. And also, let me know what topic I should talk about next. If you like this, please subscribe to my channel for more videos just like it, and click that bell icon so you get notified when I upload my next one. Have a good day. Bye.